Our theme this month is How Affirmative Prayer Works, and our topic today is In the Silence. We've been singing about that all month on Sunday mornings, haven't we? With our thanks to Jack Fowler, who wrote and recorded that very song. Now I want to offer you some ideas from the book written by Reverend Stephanie Sorensen titled The Sacred Continuum. I've referenced this book before and continue to count it among my favorites for its message. Stephanie emphasizes that the space between our formal spiritual practices is just as important as the time we spend in prayer or in spiritual mind treatment. Continuum, by definition, means something whose parts cannot be separated or separately discerned. Sorensen reminds us that divine presence, spiritual energy, is present whether we're acknowledging it in prayer or ignoring it as we think and speak in our everyday lives. From that we can deduce that our sacred source, substance, and power is always present, always active. It's never separate or absent from us. Even when we are not calling it forth, it doesn't turn off or go somewhere else. So the space between our formal prayers or spiritual mind treatments is just as sacred and just as creative as the prayers themselves. That brings us to the attention that our very thought, our every thought and word, deserves the same spiritual value that we assign to our affirmative prayer treatments or creative meditations. Sorensen even encourages us to consciously live our prayers and choose our thoughts carefully, moment to moment, to enhance and improve our lives. So this month, week by week, as well as moment by moment, we have been addressing the processes that apply in learning to live the truth we speak of in our spiritual practice. Affirmative prayer is a communion with the infinite, a conscious commingling of our thought with infinite spirit. As we come to realize God as an indwelling presence, our prayer is naturally addressed to this presence within us. In Science of Mind, we use the term spiritual mind treatment instead of prayer to eliminate any association with what we may have learned earlier in our religious trainings about pleading, bargaining, or lobbying with a far-off, perhaps ill-tempered, moody, vindictive creature who might answer some requests and not others. But the word by which we call our spiritual practice is far less important than the act of communicating with the infinite. And we are reminded that the kind of spiritual work we do, which causes us to sense an awakening to a new insight into God and into ourselves, is the kind of prayer that changes us. Spiritual mind treatment enables us to hear the call of the universe and to respond to it. In this type of prayer, we establish a consciousness of God and then project it by means of speaking our word. We're not changed because we think a different thought. We're changed as we realize our true connection with universal power. We must be open to that divine flow which rushes and streams into us from the entire universe. We must be willing to let our prayer speak through us. And we must be willing to show up and pay attention, just as we expect the universal power to be present and participating. So the short answer to the question, does prayer change anything? The short answer is yes. But the complete answer is, prayer changes everything. Prayer is the awareness of our true self in its largest, best possible context, and the key to changing things by altering any self-limiting attitudes. Today, as we continue our look into the sacred continuum, I want to talk about a particular part of the spaces between our prayer work. I want to address the beautiful and deeply meaningful practice of meditation. Getting new insights into scientific prayer calls for unlearning some attitudes and practices that we may have been conditioned to over the years. We must never take for granted that we have disposed of the God out there perception and have totally established ourselves in the presence. Many of us in the Western Hemisphere have been strongly conditioned to the idea of dualism, that is, that God and humankind are separate. Consequently, we struggle with the understanding of one basic spirit, one mind, one substance. And even though in recent years there has been a widespread and increasing interest in the Eastern practice of meditation, in many cases it's been taken out of the context of oneness of God and humanity. Instead, the emphasis has been on consciousness expansion or the relaxation response. And while these may be helpful states, they are not what leads us to true self-awareness. True self-awareness can only come through practicing the presence, the realization of oneness with the ever-present divine flow. Additionally, in our high-tech society, meditation is sometimes seen as somewhat booga-booga, metaphysical mumbo-jumbo. And if and when we admit to our friends or relatives that we follow the practice of meditation, some of them may picture us as wearing a saffron robe, sitting cross-legged on a prayer mat, holding an incense stick, and muttering unintelligible chants. And obviously, if one is into dogma, ritual, and the need for an intermediary to plead their case with the divine, the practice of meditation sounds at best heretical, if not downright pagan. However, this inward art of meditation is the practice of turning within, touching the depths of your inner soul, that point where God is manifesting as you. And it's a vital step in prayer which has biblical roots. In the New Testament, in Matthew, Teacher Jesus is said to have instructed, "Enter into your inner chamber, and having shut the door, pray to God in secret." Eric Butterworth believes that it is the absence of this meditation process that is the missing key to prayer in both Christian and Jewish concepts of prayer. Instead, he says, the prayer of institutional religion has deteriorated into a performance of words, form, and ritual with little or no communication, no silence, no listening. The great yoga master Aurobindo has said that it's not necessary to be told how to meditate. He believed that whatever you need will come of itself, if in your practice and at all times you are sincere and keep yourself open to the divine force. There is no place to go in meditation. It's not trying to get into something or out of something or up to something. It's not trying to do something. Actually, it's not doing at all. Within you, right now and at all times, there is a transcendent power. It's important to take time regularly to be still and to get centered at the still point within. For that is the consciousness level where you are the focus of the limitless energy of the universe. Let me give you an illustration. Consider an archer with bow and arrow in target practice. He stands on the line, bow and arrow in hand, facing a target 50 yards in the distance. The object, of course, is to send the arrow to the target. Intellectually, one might be led to simply fling the arrow as far as possible. But logically, we know that we cannot throw an arrow more than a few yards at least. That's why we have a bow. So you fix the arrow in the bow by placing the notch in the arrow to the string on the bow and holding it there with the thumb and forefinger of the right hand. Then you stiffen your left arm and pull the arrow back, back, back. Your object is to send the arrow to the target, but you're pulling the arrow back, away from the target. You see, there's the secret in the process. You are building up latent energy as you pull the arrow back as far as possible. Then what do? Flick the arrow out? No. You simply let it go. Right. Just let go and the arrow flies straight and true to the target. The point here, no pun intended, is illustrating the role of silence, meditation if you will, in spiritual practice. You may want to pray for the condition out there, but first consider allowing yourself to become still and become imbued with transcendent energy. Then you can look on the object about which you are praying, doing spiritual mind treatment, and with no anxious effort, take your word of truth, let it go, and whoosh, it goes forth to the target to accomplish what you've aimed it to do. There is never a moment in your life when the guidance you desire or the creative ideas you need are not present within you. It's just that when we are surrounded by the ceaseless babble of conversation, noise, distraction, and the famous "but first" syndrome, that we're unable to concentrate on our spiritual energies. Instead, let's know there is always enough power within us to accomplish everything we need, provided it is constructively applied. As a drop of water is the essence of the ocean, so too are you the essence of God. In the silence, this essence expresses as you. So make time for silence. Take time for silence. As you become still, you get the sense of losing your requirements, your ego, the turbulence sometimes churning in your personality. You may do this at the beginning of your daily prayer work or at some other time during the day or evening. When you do it is not nearly as important as that you do it. And how long you do it is unimportant as well. Meditation is meant to be a recharging process, so time is relative. Simply stay in repose for as long as it feels right. A sense of well-being is the experience one seeks, and it's a state of being unmeasured by time. There is also no specific or required position of the body. Although yoga positions may be helpful as an exercise or as a symbolic gesture, they're not necessary. The same is true of breathing processes. It's good to begin your silent time with a few deep breaths, knowing that you are breathing in life and breathing out impurities of body and mind. Breathing deeply and slowly enables body and mind to become aligned and calmed so that you have a chance to enter meditation easily. This is also true of any type of chant or mantra. Neither has anything to do with the meditation process itself, but are sometimes used as a symbolic gesture or to slow the distractive thoughts as we enter into a meditative state. And, in fact, after using one or more of these symbols for a period of time in your meditation practice, you will associate the act of deep breathing or chanting with preparation for silence, and will find it easier to go into a state of oneness. So you see, prayer or spiritual mind treatment is chiefly concerned with words, spontaneous words, and prayer is what you experience beyond the words you speak. Meditation, on the other hand, is going into the silence with no expectations. Things may happen to you and in you, but more often than not, it will simply be an infilling that will give no sensation whatever, just the feeling of well-being. And remember, silence is not an end in itself. It's a means to the end of becoming imbued with power, building a focus of spiritual energy. Then you project this energy as you speak your word, in prayer, in spiritual mind treatment, in all the days of your life. So remember these words from the Bible: be still and know, for the answer was present in you even before you asked. I invite you to be still and know. and the creative intelligence which knows what things you need, desire, intend, can and does work through you. The kingdom of God is within you. It is your very own divine potential. Be still. Accept your higher self, this spiritual process in you. Be willing to know this in every moment, including in the silence. And so it is.